Hello everyone, I'm Myron Kim, the Senior Manager of Digital Media with Audit Board, and thank you for watching a very special edition of Agents of Change, a series by Audit Board. Today we have someone with us that needs no introduction. In fact, he's usually the host of the show. It's the ultimate change agent himself, Richard Chambers. He is a world-renowned speaker, best-selling author, and one of the most influential thought leaders in the risk and audit space. He is the former CEO of the IIA, and he's currently serving as the Senior Advisor of Risk and Audit to Audit Board. Thank you for joining us on your show.
Thank you, Myron. And I think our audience should know you're normally the brains behind this operation. So you're normally on the other side of the camera, helping me to look good. So it's really great to be able to sit down and talk to you face to face.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I was going to say we've done close to 35 episodes together. Does it feel weird being on the other side of the questions for a change?
No, because I love to talk. So I mean, when I'm hosting it, I don't get to talk as much. So this is great. Yeah.
Great. Well, I know you've made many stops throughout your career. You've worked literally all over the world. You've been the Deputy Inspector General of the Post Office. You're the Overseas Dean of Nanjing Audit University. So is there any career advice that you'd be able to give to our listeners? What's the secret to your success?
Well, you know, the one thing I tell students, because like I speak to a lot of college students, and they're thirsty for that kind of advice, you know, career advice. And I would give this advice to people no matter where they are in their career. And that advice, and I've written about this, is write your own story. Don't let somebody else tell you what you need to do in what order in order to be successful. Because if you look at my career, I started out 21 years old, grabbed my briefcase and went off to an internal audit department. And everybody told me, they said, you know what, you're never going to get into public accounting if you don't do it now. Well, I didn't want to do public accounting then. I wanted to go, I had my accounting degree, but I wanted to go and do something that interested me. And so, you know, in some ways they could have been right. That could have been the end. But guess what? All those years later, when I turned 50, I put on a backpack and went to PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I didn't follow a script that somebody else laid out for me. And my advice to anybody is pursue your career in color. It's so easy just to get caught up in the mundane, routine, black and white roles that get prescribed for us. No, we got to live our life in color and write your own story.
So one thing I noticed, I was in the room with you actually when you were speaking to the National Honor Society of Accounting Majors, and you shared a little bit of your background. And one of the things that I got from that is, you said write your own story. Did you have a plan in mind in terms of where you wanted to be, or did these stops just kind of happen just from doing a great job?
No, you know what, I think careers can be over-engineered, and if you were over-engineering your career and you're saying, here's where I want to be when I'm 30, here's where I want to be when I'm 40, you're simply setting yourself up for unnecessary pressure, and you're setting yourself up potentially to see yourself as a failure. I think what you should be focused on is the process. I'm a big Alabama fan, and Nick Saban was always preaching the process. Don't focus on the end score. Don't focus on whether you're ahead in the game. Focus on what you're doing and enjoy yourself in the moment. And that's my advice when it comes to careers. I never, most of my career opportunities came not because I knocked on someone else's door. They came because someone else knocked on my door. And I just felt like that put a lot less pressure on me than if I was out there trying to find a job or trying to get the next promotion. I just set myself up for failure if I do that. So I took it differently.
Wow. Wow, it's incredible that with that mindset you were able to accomplish so much. At the same time, it's probably one of the reasons why you were able to do so much. It's really amazing. So over the last 4 years, the world has gone through a lot of change, something that you call permacrisis. In the midst of all this, do you think it's easier or harder to be a change agent? And in the context of all this global instability, do you think that auditors have a larger platform than they have before?
I don't know if I could say it's easier or harder. It's probably harder in some ways, but I would say this. It's more critical to be a change agent today than it was 4 years ago, because the change is happening. And if you're not part of it, it's going to run over you, basically. So you can either be driving the change or you can be standing in the way of it, and it's just going to run over you. And so my advice to anybody out there is embrace the environment we live in, embrace the uncertainty, the volatility, the chaos, and celebrate what can be achieved. And that's where change agents, true agents of change, I think really come of life. They come to life in this kind of environment.
Speaking of change, we are in a bit of an AI revolution. You actually, of course, share with me quite a bit about how you use AI. It's crazy how far we've come, and also a little bit scary to see where we could be going. So I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on how AI will affect, the audit, risk, and compliance professions?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about the reluctance of a lot of people in our profession to embrace what opportunities AI presents, and I don't know that it's reluctance. It's just they're slow to recognize what the opportunities are, but I think they're also slow maybe to recognize the potential threats all of this new technology presents. I believe, and I don't know how long it'll take, but I believe that a day will come when AI will be able to provide all of the assurance that an organization needs. And if that's all we do, we're going to be in harm's way. Because when AI takes over and starts being the assurance provider, we better have something that distinguishes us, something that differentiates us. And that's why I think we've got to become much more comfortable providing the insight and foresight, because I don't think AI necessarily has that natural advantage at this point. But hindsight, I think it's naturally engineered to do that.
Right. And there's like a human element, I think, to this that obviously AI can provide. We did a video together, and you were mentioning, I think it was from one of your blogs, how EQ is so much more important than IQ. So there's that human element to everything that, of course, is hopefully what's going to differentiate people in whatever professional field they're in.
Yeah, I think what I've said is the smartest person in the room may not necessarily be the best auditor. Because I think the best internal auditor brings a lot of skills besides intellect, besides prowess. Is the smart auditor isn't necessarily going to be the one who can build and sustain the relationships, who can get inside of people's heads, who can demonstrate the empathy. So yeah, EQ or emotional quotient, that emotional intelligence, so important, I think, for our profession.
There's this quote that you said that always kind of stuck out to me, and I think it's true not only in the fields that you serve, but also just across the board as a person. It came up when you were, I believe, interviewing Cynthia Cooper, and it was the quote, "Find your voice even if it's shaking inside." And I think that was also in one of your books, if I'm not mistaken. So when it comes to being a change agent, how essential is it to be open and honest in the face of conflict? In regards to this, do you have any experiences that you'd be able to maybe share in your career?
I think to be a change agent, you've got to have a lot of confidence. You've got to have a lot of inner confidence, right? But on the other hand, you can't come across as aggressive. We need to be confident enough in ourselves to assertively put forward great ideas and to demonstrate persistence until we can help achieve some outcome. But sometimes it's a little scary because maybe the person you're talking to is threatened by what you're offering. Change threatens a lot of people. And so if you're promoting something that they think could maybe cost them their job or is going to make them look bad, they're going to be a little more resistant. And so that's where I think, this idea of, we've got to bring our courageous voice, speak truth to power is something I talk about a lot. You got to be willing to do that, even if you're a change agent. But you need to do it hopefully you've gotten the relationship built to the point that they're not going to push back. But if you do find some resistance, that's when you need to step back, regroup, and approach it again and approach it differently.
Great. Now, of course, I want to talk about the new book you just wrote. And if you weren't busy enough speaking all over the entire world, as well as creating content for an entire industry of auditors, you've somehow found time in the middle of all this to write yet another book. So I wanted to ask you, what was the impetus behind Connected Risk, Conquering the Perilous Risk Exposure Gap?
One of the things that I came to the conclusion as I've sort of absorbed all of the change that we've gone through in these last 5 years is that a traditional approach to risk management no longer works. The idea that, we can have a very regimented approach, working in our own silo, and I'm talking about the internal auditors. We do our own risk assessment, we build our own audit plan, we execute the audit plan, and we hand the results to management. That was a model that worked very well for several decades. But in the era of permacrisis, the era of so much disruption, emerging risks, risk volatility, risk velocity, you can't proceed that way. So I said, I need to put forward a book that promotes and encourages the kind of collaboration that I think is critical for organizational success. Because if the auditors and the risk managers and the compliance professionals and the IT security professionals, if everybody's just hunkered down in their own cave, I use the cave analogy in the book, if they're doing that and they're not communicating, they're not coordinating, they're not going to be able to provide nearly as much value to the organization. So the book is really a call to action. It encourages all the key players in risk management to tear down the walls, to join forces, and to collaborate on behalf of the organization. Together, we are stronger than we are alone.
Some great insights there. It was a pleasure talking with you. The book is, of course, available now for purchase. Thank you for joining us today and temporarily handing the hosting duties over to me. And as fun as this was, I think I'll be handing the keys to the car back to its rightful owner. So to our viewers back at home and our listeners, Richard will be back with many more episodes to come. So stay tuned and thank you for joining us.